Alright guys, TacticalRab here and I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day. So far some serious drama back in the COD League again for this new year. After Legends stepped out of the Stallions yesterday, it seemed pretty straightforward. They would bring in an emergency substitute and play out the Challengers Elite qualifier, but the FaZe administrators, it seems, have other ideas. They are saying no for various reasons, as we will get into, and are set to disqualify the Falcons unless anything changes. Then rumours emerge that actually no, Legend is back in so they can play after all, although some on the team don't think that's actually happening. Very much intrigued your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. We've got lots to get into. We're going to start with a couple of scrims. Boston were playing the Falcons Academy Green. That's a Simp, QK and those boys. Interesting always to keep up to this. Look, at the end of the day, scrims are scrims, but worth having a quick look. They played the 5 hardpoints, the 3 overloads, and they split them. Most of the maps that Boston won in a hardpoint were reasonably comfortable. To be fair, only the exposure went 200 plus on either side. All of the overloads, absolute bangers. 4-3, 4-3, 2-3 in either which direction. So just share a couple of screenshots here. A Seam drops 54 on this Colossus hardpoint for the loss. But yeah, that's a Seam Roxas QK and Rupert Skywalker. Of course, you guys know the Boston team. Yeah, Seam's been cooking in these anyway. This is from his stream, and his numbers looking pretty tasty. We know that historically, Asim has been really good at the start of titles. Obviously, after a couple of challenging stints, to say the least, in the CDL in his last couple of attempts, it's probably not going to happen again for him, but honestly, who knows? QK has been a player that a lot of the Falcons guys, even outside of the academy rosters, are talking about. Here are some of the other screenshots as well. The other interesting scrim set that we had yesterday was Omit Brooklyn, right? So, of course, Lurqxx and those guys. Now, it's FaZe Lurqxx, of course. How will he get on in the coming weeks? How will FaZe get on in the coming weeks? Because we're only a few days away from these matches getting back on the way. I think it's a week today that OpTic play FaZe, their first game back for both teams. That's going to be real tasty. Could indicate where Lurqxx might end up, if anywhere. But they were playing the Telluride Bush Gaming. They actually locked in for a scrim, so fair play to them. Obviously, we know that Don has said that their practice hasn't always been ideal. But yeah, they won the Colossus 250-170. They won the Den 250-169. They won the Exposure 250-125. So, you know, most of those games were won by Bush, but the one hardpoint they didn't win was the Scar, and this was actually a crazy scoreboard here. Look at this. Lurqxx drops 47 for the win. Capsule drops 44. So these guys were absolutely going at it all map. I mean, to be fair, Cap had 44, but with only 4,000, I mean, say only, but 4,500 damage. Lurqxx had 6k plus damage for the win. So that was quite the map. We'll see what happens next on that side. But let's get back into this other drama and challenges with regard to the Stallions. So, as we talked about yesterday, Legend is going to be, well, we believe anyway, stepping away from the Stallions. We discussed why. He wants to get home and take care of his mental health, and, you know, for various reasons. I think he's probably been struggling in recent weeks, and you can understand why. Now, the timing of this again is unfortunate, right? The Elite qualifier is just around the corner. They've got to crack on. Basically, today is when the decisions are absolutely final. I mean, it begins today. So everything needs to be sorted in the coming hours at this point. And, well, over the last couple of days, it's becoming increasingly clear what is going on. So, Legend stepping away, he's going back home. Okay, Stallions, they need a substitute. They played with Octane. They cannot get any other players on any other elite teams. The rosters are locked. All the other teams are set in stone. If they are going to get a player, it's got to be someone who's not on one of the other elite rosters. That could be Octane. But, I mean, look, Octane is not going to play full-time for the Stallions. We talked about that yesterday. But I'll be honest, they might need him. But even if they did get him, or if they could, I don't know, sub Zoomer in, they might not be able to for the reasons that we are going to discuss. So they scrimmed with Octane. Then they decided, okay, Heist is going to come in and be our fourth instead. They spoke to the admins, right? Okay, nowadays it's ESL, FACEIT, Group. They run the show. I mean, Esports Engine are part of that as well. They are like the big tournament organizer in the world of esports right now. Owned by the Savvy Gaming Group in Saudi Arabia. We know how that's developed in recent years. There's other tournament organisers as well, but effectively, they're all part of the same thing now, and they all run the show. Now, FACEIT, they took over a couple of years back when Game Battles died, unfortunately. And since then, we have seen many rules-related dramas, and this is another one. Now, I'll share this clip from Hex in a second because he gives his perspective here on why it feels very unfair for Stallions to be punished in this case, and says that, look, Lqgend is doing a brave thing, going back and taking care of himself. He's not, he's not doing drugs, he's not out of control, nothing like that's going on. So I'll share that clip in a second, but as, Challengers Intel points out, FaZe have yet to make a decision on the Stallions Red situation. It seems pretty straightforward, right? Lqgend stepping out, okay, you bring in an emergency substitute and you run it up, right? It is what it is. Because Lqgend, because he was in the Pro League, he's got a ton of pro points. So their seeding with Heist will actually drop, I think like 6 or 7 positions. So they're going to be in a worse position without Lqgend from a purely seeding perspective. And of course, they're also playing with a last-minute sub, which is never ideal for a team, given your practice with Lqgend for some time. You even played a scrim with Octane. Now look, Lqgend might not be the player that he needs to be quite yet anyway, but I think he was making some progress and getting there, and this is certainly something which on paper should hurt the Stallions, right? They've got a last-minute sub, and they're going to lose seeding. That was an option, because if they get dropped down the seeding, that was effectively the 3 scenarios. So either they keep the seeding with Lqgend, which is possible, but probably unlikely. The other option was, okay, they get dropped down to a different seeding based on having Heist's pro points instead. The third option, which was at the time considered very unlikely, but, well, how times it may seem to have changed, the evidence of an emergency is not substantial enough to warrant a substitute, and they would get disqualified from the qualifier. Option C seems very unlikely, as the Stallions would likely have confirmed this beforehand. But this is the thing with the FaZe admins, you never really know what's going on. So Gunless then says, look, they forfeited me for forgetting to report a match within 30 minutes because I had to take sinus infection meds with food, so option C is very likely, he says. Face it, Ryan had it out for you. So they often talk about the different administrators behind the scenes. Now, whatever you think of that specific case for Gunless, he says, look, option C is actually plausible here. This is what they like to do. If they can look at the rulebook and come up with a reasoning for disqualifying someone, they will make it happen. Could have had my doctor on the phone within the hour to confirm said statement, but face it, Ryan thinks he's God behind that computer screen of his. So here we go again. People are saying, okay, is there any updates, right? Because this, I mean, we knew a couple of days back Lqgend was stepping out, so surely a decision could have been made within a matter of hours, right? Certainly not within a matter of days. So Ryan then says, here we go again, we are working as quickly as possible to make a decision. We appreciate your patience. And as Challengers Intel puts out here on the Reddit, because people are like, look, is this not common sense, right? Lqgend needed a break, it's going to hurt the Stallions anyway, he's chosen not to play, okay, it's after the roster lock, but surely you just sub in Heist. But the FaZe admins, it seems, see it differently. They think, well, there's no proof of what they consider to be an emergency, and like, I don't know what the rulebook exactly says on this topic, but presumably there's some sort of grey area here in what's considered an emergency substitution and what isn't. Now, you'd think in this case, even if it doesn't tick the boxes of what an emergency should be considered or whatever, let's just use a little bit of common sense, right? Like, let's have some actual discretion to say, surely we just make the substitution. It is an emergency situation, at least in one regard. Maybe it doesn't tick the boxes, I don't know. But it looks like that is what they are leaning towards. Because at 9 PM Eastern time on a Wednesday night, Face It were informed of the need for an emergency sub. And this is, of course, last night, so we're now 2 days after that, and Face It have still not made a decision. So, what are these guys yapping about? Oh, we're working as quickly as possible to make it. Can't be that hard, right? Like, it really can't be that hard. So, Method says, look, these Face It admins don't know what's going on. It's also worth noting, as CDC Intel also points out, that you might expect the admins making these decisions, they know COD, they know about the scene. But apparently that's actually not how they do it. They make sure that the admins that make these decisions have nothing to do with COD. They have no understanding of COD. So that they don't make decisions on bias if they know the players or something. And it's like, well, I get the logic of that. But also, I think it opens up to problems when you get these admins that will, I don't know, vehemently follow the rulebook to the absolute letter and have no element of discretion here. And as I say, it's probably a grey area situation anyway. So then Hyte is tweeting about it, and he puts the Stallions out, and then he puts the Cross out, and then he goes on to say, FaZe admins all share the same brain cell. I have no idea how they are this bad at their job. So are you a Stallion or not? And he says, I'm a spectator. And then that tweet stayed up. The other one got deleted. And then Brandon here says, same admins that will allow teams to change how many times after roster lock for LAN, right? So again, there's talk about inconsistency here when you've got admins in this case. And also, look, I'm not saying it should be a factor, but the admins and also just COD in general should consider this is the Stallions, right? This is Zuma's team. This is a big deal. It should be the same rule applies for everyone. And I don't think any team should be getting disqualified if this type of situation happened to them. But also, there's got to be a recognition here as to how bad this looks, right? If this was a team way down the order and none of us had ever heard of any of the players on that roster, we wouldn't be talking about this. But because this is Legends, because this is Zuma's team, because this is the Stallions, this is the talk of the town right now, and it looks terrible on everyone involved in these decisions. As I say, it shouldn't be chosen based on who's got the clout, but you've got to recognize that this is not going to end well. And, well, if I'm Zoom, I'm probably on the phone to Daniel Say right now. Not to mention, this is the second time I got hoed out of the Elite qualifiers after a great start for challenges, he says. So then people are like, well, all right, no, FACEIT making the fair decision. CDC Intel says, it seems that FACEIT have ruled that the Stallions do not have a legitimate reason to make an emergency change and thus cannot compete with the roster or without the roster that they signed up with. So Benjay is like, well, hang on a second here, right? So what are the rules around these emergency substitutes, right? If there's a closed qualifier in play, if this isn't a valid reason for an emergency sub, one of your players is, stepping out to go home, what is going to be a valid reason in this case? And also, if it is a disqualification and the rulebook is very clear on this, then why did it take 48 hours to make a decision? And that decision, as of recording, has not even been publicized and we don't know what it is. We only know because people are talking about it on the timeline. So anyway, let me share those couple of clips, what Hex and what Methods had to say. Then we'll get into kind of the final act of this story.
Important thing, the lifeline of this whole thing. So if it is something to do with mental health, if it is something to do with circumstances like that one out of anybody's control, that's one thing. I can understand if this guy was fucking hanging from the rafters with his fucking tongue out and fucking doing all sorts of drugs and he has to go into rehab. That's choice. In this case, he is a good, I know him personally. He's a good dude. He's brave enough to say, yo, I need help. I need help for my mental. And the only thing that can help me right now that I can see that's going to help me and my mental is me going home to see my family so that I can recenter myself to do this. Brave, fucking kudos to him for having the strength to be able to do that in a space in which everything is public and everybody has a fucking opinion on it.
I'm hoping
simultaneously
go ahead.
The Stallions don't have a choice. It was not their choice. It was not their fault, and therefore they shouldn't be punished for somebody doing the right thing for themselves.
Forfeited.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean,
they go that option.
The issue with the FaceIt admins, as far as I'm concerned, is they're just not endemic to COD, right? I don't think they understand a lot of the inner workings of the game and lag outs. So I think they go very strictly off the rule book, and then once again, there's no room for leniency because they don't understand what's really going on. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's the way I've interpreted everyone talking about these FaceIt admins.
I think it's a double problem. And
I think they're trying to go by the book with black and white, but again, like you guys said, there's situations where you actually have to take the context into what the fuck's going on.
Here's the problem, guys. Have you read the Challengers rulebook before?
No.
It is. I have. The board.
It should. I mean, before you continue, the Challengers book should be the same exact thing that the pros use. There should be no different rule set when it comes to in-game lagouts or a player disconnect.
So it looked like Stallions are getting disqualified, but then Encourage came out on stream and said that actually no, Lqgend is back in. He is, well, he can't play from France because as is described, it's not a valid region, so he can't play from there. So either he's flying back or he's never left, right? And it's all rather confusing, but now people started to talk about it as, oh my god, Legend's back in, right? He's decided, all right, team's kind of getting screwed over here, let me stay around, I'll play the qualifier with the boys, we'll make it happen, right? But apparently that's actually not happening, because then Swooty comes out and replies, obviously on the team, and he says question mark, and then he does another tweet and, well, anyway, he replies to encourage and says, when I purposely spread misinformation over the internet, and then he did another comment where he said, yo, why are you lying, telling people we're playing with Legend tomorrow? Check DMs, FaZe admin hit me up. So maybe there's still another twist still to come, right? But yeah, it's all over the shop right now. What I don't understand is if there is a decision to be made, why did it take so long, or why was it not clear? I mean, Swooty's still getting, as of this morning, FaZe admins hitting him up. It's like, okay, is the decision not made? What's going on here, right? It's either a yes or a no. Like, how hard can it be, right? You know, JoeDeceives in the chat as well. How hard can it be? We just say, all right, Heist is going to play or Heist is not going to play. You deal with the consequences. So, yeah, an absolute mess. Tonight, we'll find out whether they actually play or not. Because as it stands, it looks like they're getting disqualified. Unless Legend actually is back, after all, to play. So, yeah, what an absolute mess. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.